Hello and thank you for joining us on Daily Politics. On Daily Politics, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. My name is Shafiu Suleiman. And today on the platform, we're looking at one very important issue, especially in our polity, that is voter inducement. We're looking at the enablers, the impact, and the way out. When you talk about voter inducement, it has so many acronyms, if you like, or so many names, to qualify it. Some call it stomach infrastructure. Others call it vote buying and selling because it is a two-way thing. And then basically it's about inducement, voter inducement in whatever sense. The idea perhaps is to get the voters to vote in a particular direction. And this issue has become germane in our polity today. It is defining and redefining our electoral process. From the recruitment exercise, perhaps at the first level, that is at the first layer, talking about getting the candidates to even emerge, a lot of monetization has taken place, and it's still taking place. We've been talking about the impact or the influence of delegates and what they're able to, make during the conventions of virtually all the political parties. And now, the voting population, the electorate themselves are the next target. Politicians across party lines, well, with some exception, and now looking at the electorate as the ultimate deciders, perhaps because the votes are likely going to count and they're beginning to count now. So all loopholes have been blocked, those enablers of rigging and what have you have been blocked by the reforms going on in the electoral process, especially engineered by INEC through the 2022 Electoral Act. This has become a very serious issue and a topical one in our daily discuss, especially political discuss. So this is what we're going to look at on Daily Politics tonight. And I have in the studio Ambassador Rufus Ayeniba, who is the National Publicity Secretary of the Social Democratic Party, the SDP. He's also the chairman of spokespersons for the Conference of Political Parties in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
We also have in the studio this evening, it's not a new face anyway, Comrade Salihu Mahmood is a political analyst and is also a former National Secretary, defunct Action Party of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, the pleasure is mine.
So before we commence the discussion proper, we'll take a break. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's Daily Politics, and the conversation begins. Let me start with you, Mr. Rufus. You happen to be, one who is, if I say you, I mean your political party, the Social Democratic Party, SDP, has been raising concerns with regards to what they call the impact of this money politics, especially the voter inducement that we're talking about. In your own assessment, you said it has marred, or it has, impacted negatively on the Ekiti governorship election that was just concluded. Just give us your sense of, the magnitude of this challenge, especially as it happened in Ekiti. Some would say Ekiti is becoming a role model or is becoming a case study when it comes to issue of voter inducement, in whatever sense. Let me hear your...
Yeah, thank you for having me. It calls for concern that we're in this situation as a people, as a nation. Our democracy, I find it difficult to agree with this term of saying our democracy is Is a margin is
nascent.
involved.
It's no longer nascent.
It's no longer
Anyway. We're talking
nascent.
about more than 20 years
Yes,
of...
any child of 18 has come of age, 21 specifically has come of age. It's said to have, so Nigeria, our democracy in this situation has come of age. And we expect certain standard of maturity as we go by. What we're witnessing now is a sad story for Nigeria. Sad in the sense that it doesn't look as if we want to move forward as a people. A situation where electoral corruption has been institutionalized and perfected in a manner, entrenched in our body politic in a manner that is difficult to even lay your hands on and say, oh, this is it. But these are staring us in the face.
Institutionalized.
Institutionalized.
Some will say, perhaps until recently, they will have a negligible, cases of.
It's not recent. If you're talking about a year ago, we also what happened in Osun in 2018, where we had just a small percentage of the electoral population that were needed to declare a governor. We saw how people were bought over with money by the two parties, and it became the highest bidder having the day. They needed, what was the number? I can't recall now, but it's there in the public domain. We saw that is 2018, that's 4 years ago. It's not today. And the same thing is cooking there. Okay, we just saw it.
Okay, but the proportion now,
in Ekiti.
Yeah, the magnitude is becoming alarming. When you find, sort of trading taking place at the polling units, the polling centers, even though some say it happened even before the election. Some people are going door to door, kind of trying to induce the voters and so on and so forth. But the level at which it is taking place now is so brazen that, it is no longer a secret that you find people brandishing, or showcasing monies they collected from politicians, to cast votes for them and what have you. The viral videos that went on, that were on social media after the Ekiti election, or during the Ekiti election, speaks volume to that. People are no longer ashamed of saying, yes, I've gotten so and so from this. People are also not ashamed of coming out to say, hey, who is buying and all of that. So it's becoming a norm. How are you looking at the trajectory?
Well, when you look at that, there are factors responsible for this. One, loss of confidence by the electorates in elected officials due to their past records of getting there and disconnecting with people and reality. Secondly, poverty. Then failure of the policing system. Even when we have two leading anti-graft agencies, the EFCC and the ICPC. In Ekiti elections, for instance, I saw on social media where there were detectives of EFCC even arresting people in their homes and host of other things. The moment elections are held and the ruling party that is at the center has the control of the police, security agencies and all, and that this is what you get. Sometimes there are, with due respect, there are allegations of conspiracy and collaboration between some unscrupulous personnel and officers of the security agencies of both the police, civil defense, DSS and others, where those you see that are being arrested or caught are the visible ones. The invisible ones are settled, and the settlement is made in Eden hotels, as we saw during the primaries of both the PDP, APC and host of others, where when EFCC went to the National Stadium for the PDP wanting to arrest some people, the PDP, what have you, were smart enough to have shared their delegates' money in places that EFCC did not even get information on. So also that of the APC. So it is a kind of poverty that pushes the electorates to wanting to say, okay, let me collect what I will collect. Because after all, for the 4 years, the governor will be there, or the state House of Assembly member, or House of Rep member, or senator, or even chairman of local government. I might not be able to have access to such elected leaders due to stiff protocol. And that is why in most cases, we say when we are practicing democracy that is in tandem with those of America and other first world countries, let our protocol systems be softened, because most of the times there are people...
Something to allow for voter inducement?
Well,
to institutionalize it or legalize it?
When you look at voter inducement, sometimes we as electorates also open the door for it, because for these politicians to know our weak points, there might be these practices. Don't forget, it didn't just originate from today. Second Republic, the MPN, UPN, MPP, and other parties, it was there. Then the short-lived SDP and NRC, what have you, of Babangida. There were allegations that most of the parties, the NRC and the SDP, that were the two, what have you, also did that. From the advent of the stability of our democracy from 1999, we knew what happened in 2003 and what have you. Majorly, certain enlightenments are lacking, and poverty that I mentioned to you, as well as low enlightenment in the polity.
Right. Okay. Looking at the enablers, one of it caught my attention. He talked about the disconnect between the people, that is the electorate, and the elected. It happens mostly after, they emerge at whatever level. They disappear from the society until another 4 years, they now come back. And then two, the governance deficit, in most cases, also trigger this. The fact that, people are no longer, satisfied with the level or the performances of the people elected. Their records is it's nothing to write home about. Again, you don't even see them. And so the electorate beginning to lose hope in the whole process. In your own, in this, looking at this scenario, is it to say that the parties or the political parties and those emerging, that is the leaders, also have substantial share of, the reason behind this rise?
I think we just have to, everything starts and ends with leadership. At the level of government, at the level of those administering the affairs of the nation. The moment a people is psyche is pulverized, they're negative. They have built this negative orientation that nothing works. This government is not for me.
They're resigned to fate.
Yeah, they're resigned to fate. And government itself deliberately, our administrators, deliberately putting the people in a corner of poverty, penury, and all of that, making them to lose their sense of reasoning. And then when you see 10,000 naira being brought to them, 5,000 naira, they gladly rush to take it and say, oh, let me take this. I don't know when I will have. But if the government at any level, state, local government, federal, and there's performance, there's good governance, there's service delivery, people are delivering on their mandate, the mandate given to them, you will discover that they wouldn't need to go out there. For instance, let's talk about Ekiti. We just concluded the election.
Yes, sir.
If they had performed well, if there had not been that disconnect between the people and the government.
But they also claim that it is their performance
That's what I say.
That gave them the mandate.
What I'm saying is this, that is for we will get there. What I'm saying is this: if you have done well for the people, you wouldn't need to go and give them money to come out and vote for you again. They would naturally want to say, oh, please, we need you to continue. Giving them money as they did is just an indication, it's a clear attestation to the fact that they did not do well. The people had made up their mind. They knew that they had made up their mind to vote them out. But the poverty level, the people, the majority of the people in, did not allow that to happen. That when they brought this money to them, it became something important to them, because majority of these people may not even have access to 15,000 naira for a whole family to run a...
But isn't that temporal? You know, when you collect such amount of money,
no,
you're mortgaging your 4 years.
There are two types of poverty: the poverty of lack of the basic needs, and the poverty of the mind. The poverty of the mind is what pushes a man to mortgage his future and say, no, they resign it to fate and say, let me take this. I don't know what comes, where hope will come again. But if you know that, no, this is not what I should do. The future is greater than today. And I have a stake, I have a role to play to engender a good society for myself and for my children. Right. They will not go that direction.
Looking at the point, you know, he just made, looking at, I mean, why elected public officials would have to part way with monies they either acquire legally or illegally, as it were, during elections, but then neglecting governance, which is the primary reason why they are in power. People can stash money, you know, huge amount of money that they can bring out during election to buy votes. I've had the chairman talking about, I mean, raising a concern earlier during the press conference today.
Yes.
That we are about to see a time, you know, a shift in our democratic journey where people, candidates asking for, who are interested in, you know, seeking people's mandate, would no longer go to campaign because it's realized money is the ultimate answer. So they get enough money, and then during election time, they go out and buy the votes instead of going out to market their ideas, policies, and what have you. How are you looking at this shift in our democratic trajectory?
Well, if you observe any country, whether first, second world, or third world country, that is devoid of social security, health insurance, shelter plan, power stability, security, employment generation, and host of others, is bound to be faced with this kind of inducement from unpatriotic and unscrupulous politicians. They know who we are, that poverty is there from ward level to local government to state, and that is the reason why you see people migrate at higher level from rural areas to urban center in search of greener pasture. Today, take example of Abuja. Accommodation is high. Virtually every family, whether from Kwara, Kogi, Lagos, Kebbi, Sokoto, wants to come and work in Abuja, even if it is a job they will take just salary of 20,000 that they cannot be able to pay for good accommodation, transport themselves, and feed well. This practice of where we normally grow up from our rural communities, some resort to farming, skillful jobs in the villages, then later you go to school, then later you get a better job in the city, is no longer there. You even see able-bodied youths now not waiting for white-collar jobs. Even if it is a bike that there will be a dispatch rider, they prefer to be in Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, and other cities that
we're still talking about bad governance, because if there is governance at the subnational level, if there is development, if there is an enabling environment for people, to be empowered or to rise economically, people would not be rushing to the center. So it shows that there is that leadership
failure as well as bad governance, and also high rate of corruption because...
But isn't that what election is meant to do? I mean, to change? Because the idea of periodic election is to allow people, to give people the opportunity, to elect people, leaders, I mean, either vote out leaders who are not performing and then bring in leaders who will change, the narrative. So why is it that people, don't look at the impact of this, the power of their mandate, that is the franchise, rather they look at just what they will get in terms of monetary gain?
My senior colleague analyzed that. The moment there is poverty in a society, you don't think well. In a situation where you are even thinking of how to pay school fees, house rent, feed your family, and even sort some 1 or 2 problems, you don't think right. And the politicians, whether at the legislature or executive angle, already knows our weak points. And they bank on this by pilfering with public accounts. Monies meant for healthcare delivery, they get it into their personal pocket. Money made for educational enhancement, same way. Money made for human capacity building, same way. Money meant for security. Look at the northern part of the country, for instance, from northeastern, northwestern to north central. The problem of insecurity has made people not to even think about who is going to be our next governor or next senator, because people are even praying to God to wake up the next day without hearing sound of gunshot. That is the artificial creation of some unpatriotic politicians, because they know once they conspire and create that, they have made people to be weak, therefore they can manipulate and mingle and get back to the offices they want to be re-elected into. Above all, if the system is working well, from the upper chamber to the lower chamber of the legislature and the executive, whatever amount is being appropriated or budgeted for education, maybe the schools. I can vividly tell you of recent, I attended a Buckingham University-backed Association for Formidable Educational Development in Nigeria, where I was ashamed to hear Vice Chancellor of Buckingham University, Professor Tuli, during one of his visits, was the one that realized that Ijaw people that lives close to this Ton Monda at top water and Oronshoki and other areas had school on top of the water. At the time, Professor Toli, who is the VC of Buckingham University, confronted Lagos State government. It was not in their data. That is somebody from the British University, which is shameful. That is to tell you, these politicians, it is only their children that knows the sweetness of sound health care, good education, shelter, and also for that. Even federal capital here that houses the diplomatic community, the president, vice president, senate president, service chiefs, and other top echelons. You have slums close to Utako village here, Jabi village here, Kuchingoro. When you go there, the proximity, like Asokoro, for instance, where is highbrow residential area, there is what you call Koroduma village. Go and see there, no pipe on water, no road. In those kind of villages, what you only find there is illicit drug sales, prostitution, and other things. Already, they have deprived us of good public schools, good hospitals, and other social
side by
security.
side with these developed areas. And even though it's also gradually becoming a threat, because you don't just, push people into poverty, into drugs and all of that without repercussions.
Absolutely.
We're beginning to see that manifesting. Yes. Today, the Kaduna-Abuja highway is becoming almost a no-go area. And it is as a result of some of these things we are talking about. Now, coming back to MM, look at the role. Because, if there is sort of conspiracy among the political elites, or the elites, generally, the elite capture of the society, and then we are also, left with no option than to have, other people on the other side of the divide who are also critical stakeholders in the project, to also rise up and say no to this. The civil society organizations, the political parties, the media, and others who can, rise up to the occasion and say, how much of this are we doing to say, okay, liberate, salvage the country from descending into this sort of anarchy, though, because gradually we are beginning to see, manifestation of the impact of this money politics. So what role are we playing in terms of changing this situation?
Yes, we are all in this together, the leaders and the led. government, and the people. We have no other country. The unfortunate thing is this: people feel that it is we against them, or they against us, as if we live poles apart. The rich, the poor, we spend the same currency. We may not. They may go to highbrow supermalls to make their purchase here, but somehow to get those things to those malls, the common man would do
the services of the common.
The service of the common man. To drive their children to school, they need the service of common man. To launder their clothes, everything you need side by side. The rich, the poor, to work together. If we don't build the society together, the poor man, lack of sleep as a result of hunger, will keep the rich man awake night. Going forward as a nation, we just have to make deliberate effort at all levels to see that we have a change of orientation, a change of mindset, get our systems to work. For instance, I will commend INEC, especially under this dispensation, the great works they're doing, the innovation, the electoral reform, the electoral act. All of these combined is making impact. We've seen that in Ekiti, but the other part of it, we saw how security officers aided crime, looked the other way while these things were being done. We saw arrests were made. It is a responsibility. It's not somebody was asking us today, what are you planning to do? It's not our responsibility to prosecute those that were arrested. The system
can only cry out, just like you're crying out.
Yes, our role is to do, and with your attention to
legal action.
That if we don't get it right, our future is being, democracy is under siege in Nigeria. With this kind of mindset that our leaders are taking into elections, we cannot buy votes and get yourself to power. You don't have legitimacy. Legitimacy derives from the free mandate given by people by their conviction that you merit it. When a situation like they did in Ekiti, although it won't stand the test of time, I can assure you, it's been addressed. But the issue is this: it is beyond the political parties, beyond SDP. All Nigerians must rise, because all we have seen, they address rehearsals for 2023.
Yeah,
we were going to see them in large scale.
The evolving nature. We talked about how it was before, during the First Republic, the Second Republic, and now it is gradually evolving and it's becoming more sophisticated. So we'll look at that when we return, and of course the role played by other actors, the security agencies, and perhaps what needs to be done to tame this tide, or to address this fundamental problem which is threatening our democracy. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics, and we'll be looking at voter inducement, and the enablers, the impact, and the way out. We'll take a short break. When we return, the discussion continues.
Times have passed, and with it so many things that once were our visual delights. Technological advancement has brought about tremendous changes in the way and manner media deliver content to its audience.
As it continues to reposition itself to serve you much better, Media Trust Limited is rebranding its logo and visual identity to reflect our current vision and futuristic drive.
We have spread our tentacles beyond the pages of the newspaper to the digital space. The new logos and visual identities reflect the new scope of our multimedia reach.
Even with this development, however, we will continue to remain with you as we have always remained, committed to our founding philosophy, which is based on trust, integrity, openness, and courage.
The new logo, which is a marriage of a revolving globe and a mobile device, signifies the unlimited reach of our content on the digital space.
We are always the backbone of operations, as we do our best to deliver content that suits your needs. When you see a new trust title or platform in the next few days, therefore, do not be alarmed.
We remain committed to you and will continue to serve you through fair and responsible journalism.
Thank you very much. We're still on to Daily Politics, reaching you live from Trust Television here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. And today our talking point is voter inducement, the enablers, the impact, and the way out. And it is against the backdrop of the rising cases of, monetization of our polity, right from the leadership, the recruitment of candidates down to the electoral process and so on. And then we're looking at, the key actors. Just before the break, Mr. Eniba is talking about, the role of the security agencies, which has come under searchlight. A lot of people were worried, especially looking at those viral videos where, you find people gladly or gleefully, demonstrating or showcasing, their proceeds, if I should put it there, proceeds of the trading of their votes and what have you. And then there were cases also of arrests by security agencies, including
EFCC.
the EFCC operatives. We would not hesitate to say, we wouldn't hesitate to say that, prosecution will not take place or people will not be. But then, generally, if you look at the role of security agencies in the whole saga, what would you say with regards to their ability, to stop this or to halt it or to checkmate, the excesses of politicians and, of course, the electorates who are also engaged in this?
Well, when you look at the security agencies from the armed forces, who are like 3 arms, like Army, Navy, Air Force, then coming to the custodians of internal security as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic, the police, complemented by others like security and civil defense, DSS and other paramilitary agencies, you observe that their allegiance is not always, with due respect to some that are patriotic and selfless, is always to the government of the day. For example, you see they say President and Commander-in-Chief, he controls the appointment of chiefs of Army, Naval, Air Force, DSS, DG, Inspector General of Police, including even those of the NIA, as well as Controller Generals of Immigration, Commandant General of Civil Defense, Fire, Prison, and others, which makes the higher echelon of the security agencies to always be loyal to the president and others, leaving behind their rules of engagement and why they got employed into the various security outfits of Federal Republic of Nigeria. And this has not been today. If you take, for instance, during the Second Republic, there was an allegation against an Ogbomosho-born Inspector General of Police, whom was seen to have been loyal to the then government of the person that won the 1979 as well as 83 elections. So that remains allegation until proven. And that extended to 2003. There was an Oshun-born Inspector General of Police that also was alleged to have worked for a certain man that was in charge while the President and Commander-in-Chief was abroad making image for Nigeria, going by what happened at that time. So the moment a security agency does not look at the least person in the society and the allegiance is to the top echelons, this is what you get. And we can only address this if the entire security architecture in Nigeria is restructured. Let me give you an example now. You are holding election. Now from Abuja, there are already appropriational instructions to officers of the Army, Air Force, Navy, Police, DSS that are going to those states do this. The only thing they do, they mingle and deceive us by saying different things on television, in newspaper. Meanwhile, the script has already been given. Because, for example, God forbid, if, for example, you are a DIG, AIG, or CP, or Major General maybe commanding officer or what have you, if you are given a proportional instructions from Abuja and you go there and do the contrary, when you come back, they might end up posting you to either Sambisa or any...
But is it a possibility?
No, it has been so.
Do we have, I mean, leaders, have they descended this low that they can... We have leaders of integrity, people who, you know, are also interested in leaving a legacy behind, a legacy of free, fair, and credible elections in Nigeria. Do you think such people who, you know, possess such... or claim such, you know, qualities would descend that low to give instruction to security agencies to compromise and exercise, or to, you know, look the other way, you know, when things are getting wrong?
You see, for example, when the president and commander-in-chief is patriotic, he can go and do the job of the IG, he can go and do the job of chiefs of naval, army, air staff, DG, DSS, and host of others. That is why we say once a leadership is not scrutinizing or supervising people that makes the government effectively, this happens. I can give you an example. It could be maybe one minister that have unrestricted access to the president and commander-in-chief that comes and say, come, this is what the president said. We have seen it in this government where security agencies are working at variance. The army is doing the different thing, the police is doing the different thing, the immigration is doing
the lack of synergy.
There are no collective responsibility. And that is why we said the Office of National Security Advisor should be held by somebody whose integrity is undiluted, who has proven that he is committed to nation building than the president and commander-in-chief of the day.
Okay, how do we get that without insulating the institutions? Because one of our banes, you know, as a country is the fact that we have weak institutions. We have strong people, but weak institutions. How do we strengthen our institutions, insulate them, and make them neutral, you know, make them accountable to Nigerians now, not the ordinary people, I mean the people at the top, for instance. Other countries like developed democracies, you know, you cannot talk about, you cannot compromise an institution. An institution is bigger than a person. We've seen what happened during the Capitol siege in United States, and how the institution of the assembly, I mean the lawmaking body, and of course even the security agencies rise up to it and say, no, we cannot allow such things to happen. How can we insulate our institutions to operate neutrally?
Thank you. We don't need to go far to put our hands on the solution. The solution is good leadership. It starts and ends with good leadership. We have a president whose word is his bond, whose promises he stands by it, and whose allegiance to the nation, is undoubted and is obvious. Everybody can see it. People will naturally, things will fall in place. The right things will be done. The system will work. In the days of Fashola in Lagos, when he came on board as a governor, he came with some, you needed to see what Oshodi was like. And he came in with this single-mindedness of turning the place around. He brought in strong regulations and all of that. And he stood by it. He got people, the right people to walk the talk. And Lagos was turned around. Our president, late President Yar'Adua, came on board in 2007 and admitted to the whole world that the system, the election that brought him
was flawed.
Yeah. And that he was committed to changing it and leaving a legacy. And he did all of that. That was how we were able to get the Waste Commission, the electoral reform, and all of that.
Are we saying there is a question of sincerity of purpose in this?
I'm coming to this now. I'm coming to, let me just, what I'm saying is this. If you have a president who has told us severally that he is committed to leaving a legacy of good, credible elections.
Fair elections.
And he remains neutral. He gives an instruction, go there, deliver the job creditably. And people know that, oh, if you do this, you are going to get fired, you're going to get the repercussion. It is because there are no deterrents. It is because people get away with anything. Is the impunity, the culture of impunity encouraged by the system, and the leadership style of our leaders, our presidents, our governors, and all of that. Let me be specific. If this president is reputed to be a man of integrity. We saw what he did when he was in the military. People clamored for him to come in. People voted for him in 2015. He came in. But when things are done under his nose and wrong things are done, and that you never imagined could happen, you begin to wonder that what kind of leadership is this? And that is why things are not going as expected. We need leadership that will do the right thing and instill the culture of accountability, transparency, and patriotism.
Right. Talking about deterrence and providing leadership that would guarantee this fairness and justice, a leadership that is fair-minded, a leadership that will instill discipline and all of that. And then some would say, or perhaps politicians, political actors are completely different from the point they are seeking election to the point they find themselves in elected positions. A lot of things happen, and then people are overwhelmed. You are caught in the wave of trying to please your political party, your political associates. You're also mindful of the party interest and what have you. At the same time, you want to ensure that there is fairness and justice. How do you see, our leaders navigating through this difficult terrain, especially when it comes to issues like this, deteriorating or rather changing dynamics in our political process that brought about this issue of vote buying, voter inducement?
Well, when you look at even the preliminary stage of producing who becomes the candidate of party, it's fought itself. Of recent, you saw what happened, where even on social media, some that failed to clinch the ticket of their parties had to go to houses of some of the delegates to collect money. It is from one stage to the other. From the primary aspect, we need to learn how to make somebody that has credibility, integrity, patriotism, and others candidate of a party.
But how can we achieve that in an atmosphere of monetized electoral environment?
Okay, how did Buhari come? How many times has President Muhammad Buhari vied for presidency? From 2003, you know that. It was his integrity, just as demonstrated and emphasized by my senior colleague here. It was his reputation and integrity that made the merger force to believe in him and for that merger to take place. How much did he spend by getting the ticket? How much did he spend for the general election? It was his cronies and other people that believed in his integrity that he can take us to the promised land. The way we did that of Buhari in 2015, we can still do it. It starts, like we say, the change begins with you and me. For example, he is a man that I know knows political administration. From how he's able to administer the affairs of SDP, that gives him a better chance in our minds to give him that, what have you. But does it happen these days? No. And what are the responsible factors? Like I told you, poverty. Like most of these politicians themselves, other people makes them. There is still politics of godfatherism, where for you to go to State House of Assembly, for you to go to House of Rep and Senate, you need some godfathers. Let me take example from one of the contenders of one of the major parties for 2020 presidency. We know the numbers of people he sponsored from states to become senators, House of Rep members, and also. So you now tell me that his words will not hold water. It will. So it starts from there. When we discourage godfatherism. We carry out mass enlightenment, then we ensure that the system is put in place for social security, where you know that no matter how worst, you have a leverage through social security, you have hazards, you have health insurance, you have shelter. Look at America, for instance. You can go for mortgage plan for 30 years, repayable. Do we have that in Nigeria? Even with the federal mortgage bank, with the what have you, there are no social security in the country. And the moment a country is lacking in that, you can't think well. So as regards the leaders, political leaders,
providing that leadership,
I don't see them changing the narratives now, because they don't just wake up overnight. There was a senator from my side who said he became a senator just in 30 days. Without Godfather, what have you support? Would that have been possible? Let's take it from there.
Right. Okay, talking about the impact this is making in our democratic journey. Fundamentally, there is a serious concern that if this vote buying trajectory is allowed to pester, it has the capacity to even undermine the democracy we are enjoying. And of course, the need for a collective resolution to say no to it. How can we we develop this collective action against this menace?
Well, the people need to come to understand that no one is going to come from anywhere to build this nation for us. We are stakeholders in this project, Project Nigeria. Everybody, one way or the other, is affected and will be affected in the long run by what we fail to do. Our leaders have failed to provide leadership that will guarantee education, that will banish poverty, that will give health, that will give basic social infrastructure. They're busy engendering an atmosphere of anarchy, because that is what they profit from. They are busy putting the people, our children, out of school, because that is what they use to get elected to office. Inequity. The vote buying, the effect of the vote buying, it was very popular. It was, you see the young people who got money and they were giggling around with what they got. If they were in school, you understand?
So you mean they deliberately keep children arming to
yeah, I'm just telling you, the system that keeps our people pauperized, our children out of school, and all of that, they will gladly run and take anything available to survive. They don't know what. In the last 6 months or so, they have been out of school.
Okay. But then there is a wave of change, some will say. We're beginning to see some level of enthusiasm on the part of Nigerian youths.
Young people.
Especially the recent, scramble for the PBC, for instance. How do we leverage on this, to perhaps build a campaign around say no to vote buying or say no to voter inducement? How do we leverage on this enthusiasm to change this?
Like he earlier said, we need to collaborate with civil society organizations from the grassroots to the urban centers. Mind you, even with the mass awareness, because I was an observer to where people gathered in their thousands to make INEC knows, even when they are guarded by soldiers, that we have the right as citizens. If you don't allow us to register, how do we make a change and ensure development in offices?
Now that there is an extension, we're talking about
the extension was accompanied by judicial pronouncement. I know you are aware. There was a court pronouncement that compelled the Independent National Electoral Commission
not to stop,
to continue.
Right. So they've heeded the call and they have extended.
So it was the awareness and the protest by the youths and all that.
How do we take advantage of it?
How we can take advantage is by sustaining it, by ensuring that we checkmate whoever is trying to stop it.
Right.
Now we've gotten the judicial backing. The rest is for us not to stop. Not when we get it in Abuja, Lagos, Ondo, or anywhere. Let's also ensure, no matter how remote a place is in Nigeria, that will put our searchlight, the same effort we put in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt, we can put in Madobi village in Kano, we can put it in Portuscum in Yobe, we can put it in Kayama in Kwara State, or Akoko Edo in Edo State.
Okay, thank you very much. They need to spread their tentacles, they need to expand the campaign, they need to take it to the nook and crannies of Nigeria. And of course, for Nigerians to also realize that their votes is their power. The PBC is their power. The franchise is their mandate, and they can make Omar their future. Thank you very much for talking to us, Comrade Saliu Mahmood. And of course, Rufus Aginiba. Thank you very much for,
it's a pleasure
for your perspective.
Thanks for having us.
So, on behalf of the guests and the technical crew, my name is Shafiu Suleiman, and this is where we come to the end of the program. Thank you for joining us.